Hello and welcome once again to Crazy Comics and Stories. It's me, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard. And at the other end of the series of tubes and wires that we call the internets is Joe, Crazy Writer. How you doing today, Joe?
Say, Cory, why did the cows return to the marijuana field? It was the pot calling the cattle back.
Please clap.
Wow. I guess Jeb Bush liked it because he tried to get people to... So, as of the time that this podcast goes up, Festivus is over. And those other holidays, too.
God. But in a little bit peering behind the curtain, it's been just a mere 48 hours since we recorded Jan Festivus episode. So, what are we going to talk about, Cory?
Well, we could talk about New Year's.
Nah, it hasn't happened yet. Could talk about Christmas, although it hasn't happened yet as of us recording this.
And I worked that day.
Yeah, me too. And we could talk about the impending snowstorm that's coming down on us after being told we're not going to have a white Christmas. Well, looks like we're getting anywhere from 1 to a zillion inches.
Oh, good.
That should happen Wednesday.
We could talk about all the Marvel movies coming out for Christmas. Oh, yeah.
No, not yet. We could talk about Wonder Woman 84. Oh, it's not out yet.
No.
Yeah. Well, there's only one thing
we
left
could
to
talk
do.
about Future State.
I ain't buying it.
Oh. Well, I have been reading funny books. How about you?
Oh, are you talking an old-fashioned review episode?
Why, yes, I am.
Well, let's do it.
Okay. You want to go first?
Sure. And I'm actually going to start out with something shocking. I'm going to start out with a DC comic.
What?
Because as you know, the last couple podcasts, we have not been giving DC much love. And it's for good cause. I mean, they're doing their damnedest to leave us behind. But I did decide to pick up the other history of the DC universe. And as of us recording, we've only got the first one out. And it, of course, is dealing with the man we call Black Lightning, Jefferson Pierce. What's cool about this is I really wasn't paying attention. I just opened up and started reading. And it's a blast of a book. I mean, it's basically kind of telling the pre-crisis story of Black Lightning, Jefferson Pierce. And it's done from his point of view, a lot of awesome artwork, but it's largely a prose book. And in the oversized format it comes in, because it's kind of like magazine size, it works really well because you get a lot of story, you get a lot of art, and it pretty much covers his, what would you call it, 70s origins, things like that. And it was a damn fine read. I enjoyed the living heck out of it. I don't know how many issues this particular book is going to have, the other history of the DC universe. I would be happy if they did this forever with all their characters. Point of view, their origin, just stick with the pre-crisis early stuff or whatever you got to do. I mean, if you want to do Superman earlier, but this to me would be a fine series just to do quarterly to keep up the high quality of it. As usual, the only real beef I have is they give absolutely zero credit to the creator of Black Lightning, one Tony Isabella. The agreement was between DC and Tony that anytime they use Black Lightning like that, it would be Black Lightning created by Tony Isabella with Trevor Olson. Because Trevor, this is one of those things, people like to piss and moan about, but essentially Trevor and Tony agree. Well, Trevor was the artist. He did not come up with Black Lightning. That was Tony.
I thought it was Trevor Von Eden.
Who did I say?
Trevor Olson.
No, you're right. Trevor Von Eden.
I was going to say Trevor Olson would be his Swedish cousin, right?
Yes. Yeah. Well, you never know. It could be. These artists are kind of weird, but no, like Cory said, that's the headline. And of course, DC, once again, sticking it to the creators, can't put it on the cover, even though, well, whatever. That's just DC, it's something about DC and Marvel. They just seem to like pissing on guys who are their legacy. It really doesn't cost them anything, but whatever. Other than that, my minor beef with that, a major, if you're, Tony Isabella, it was a pretty good story. I enjoyed the living heck out of it. They kind of retrocon everything into a history. I have no clue what Earth it's on. I don't really care. I think that's kind of the thing with DC right now is if you're going to be enjoying DC Comics, it's not going to be a shared universe. There's a lot of people online celebrating that. There's a lot of people online going, I don't see what the big deal is. I had no problems with it anyways. I'm a guy who doesn't have problems with it. I like the shared universe, but it's not going to stop me from enjoying a story. So there you go, DC. If you want to get some of my money, just keep this one going beyond the 5 issues. You got hundreds of characters you could do this with and just make it enjoyable. So yeah, I at a you always do the buy,
borrow, or ignore.
I obviously bought it, and I would recommend you do too. Or wait for I imagine this will come out as a graphic novel. And it might be a little cheaper because this was $6.99 was a pretty good price for this oversized comic. And like I said, awesome art and a lot of reading in it. What you got up for our fans for your first pick, Cory?
I have a DC book as well.
Oh.
Mad Magazine number 17. Now, you're wondering, well, why that specific issue of Mad Magazine? Well, what Mad has been doing, Mad kind of relaunched and then crashed and burned. So now they're just doing reprints with a few new things here and there. Issue 17 is a tribute to Sergio Aragonés. So it is a full magazine full of work by Sergio, including, sadly, his last work for Mad Magazine. The previous issue was for Al Jaffe, and Al Jaffe, 99 years old, retired. As of being 99, he said, yeah, I think I'm going to retire now. So they did a special tribute issue to him. Mad did a special tribute issue to Sergio, who is still one of the best cartoonists in the world. His early stuff is funny, but by the time he got to the mid-60s, early 70s, he had really improved his art. His figure drawing was very specific. You can look at a drawing and know it's a Sergio drawing immediately. Once you know his style is always going to be in your head. He did Gru. He's done all sorts of other things, but he's known for his work on Mad. This is a wonderful tribute to him. However, because Mad is going all reprint, and I believe there are only 2 people at DC still working on Mad Magazine. Although they're still selling subscriptions to Mad Magazine for $5 each through Groupon. I don't get that, because they said, well, we're going to finish up our subscription commitments and then let it go. But they're still selling subscriptions. But Sergio has been laid off, so this is their basically they're giving him the entire issue to say goodbye. There is actually a cartoon in this, a Mad Look at Mad, where at the end of it, it's Sergio taking his stuff and leaving the Mad offices on page 3. So go out, pick this up. Sergio is a national treasure, just like us. We're a national treasure. And just like the last issue, which was the tribute to Al Jaffe, they really have gone through and picked the best of the best for this issue. It is a solid buy, and it may be a little hard to find because it's not on newsstands anymore, and it's available at comic shops only. And if you can't find a comic shop that has it, if you buy the digital edition, it does have an extra, let's see how many extra pages it has. It has an extra almost 20 pages of work by Sergio.
Or as we would call it, 10 minutes.
Yeah. 10 minutes of drawing.
Yeah.
Joe, remember how we talked about the sales figures in our last non-Festivus episode?
Yes.
They have the statement of ownership here.
Oh.
So let's see here. Mailed outside country paid subscription stated on blah, 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 blah. So the number of subscriptions they had last year. See, number of single issues printed, 82,881. Subscription copies, 71,230. Subscriptions outside the country, 3,541. And then they go through sold through newsstand dealers, returned, etc., etc. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Total distribution, 82,469 copies. Copies not distributed, 13,059 copies. So total copies printed, 95,578. Electronic copy circulation. We actually have numbers for that now. You ready?
Sure.
394.
Yep, those digital sales are knocking them crazy.
So there you go. That's Mad, one of the few comics still putting out the statement of ownership so that we get real numbers. And because they're owned by Warner Brothers, I would imagine that they have to be accurate. Joe?
Cory, are you a happy person?
Eh.
Could you spend 24/7?
Sure, I don't think anyone's a happy person.
Could you spend 24/7 being happy?
No.
Well, you might have to, because in the near future, in America, unhappiness is illegal and the punishment is brutal. If you pick up the issues from Ahoy Comics, Happy Hour. First 2 issues are out on the shelf, and you will discover just what happens in such a society where if you're not happy, you're going to be sent away to become happy. I started reading this thinking, oh, happy hour, like a drink or something. But as I started reading it, it became apparent what was going on, because we're following basically the story of Jerry. After a head injury robs Jerry of his ability to fake a good mood, authorities commit him to a readjustment center. There, he and his fellow misery wallower Kim spark a mutual attraction. They learn of an underground organization devoted to emotional freedom, and they resolve to escape. The art in this one is really good. I mean, you can follow the characters. You're jumping on board with Jerry, not quite know what's going on, and eventually you start figuring, oh, I get it. If you're feeling bad, you're going to get the shit kicked out of you until you feel better, or they toss you into a rehabilitation camp where they do things such as puppy therapy, or the modified leeches to suck out the happiness out of you. Electrotherapy is very happy, very common. Everybody, of course, is running around with those smiles on their face. It's very surreal and quite jolting, and you're kind of reading this going, I don't know if I can live in this society. Well, they will make you, don't worry, because one way or another, you will be happy. The first 2 issues, you're introduced to Jerry, and as I've already said, he's just too much of a sourpuss. He gets tossed into the happy asylum, where they work to try to make him happy. But he meets up with his fellow inmate, and they do plot and escape because they want to get to this place out in Mexico where they apparently there's an asylum, and they can be as miserable as they want without the government coming down on top of them. I believe Happy Hour is a miniseries. It's one of those I probably just picked up thinking, okay, this sounds kind of interesting.
Everything from Ahoy is a miniseries.
And I don't know if Ahoy does graphic novels or not.
Yes, they do.
So if you're not keen to go check this out, I believe it's a 4-issue miniseries. I don't know for sure. But you can either catch the first 2 on the newsstand now or just wait for the graphic novel that should be coming. But this is very interesting, very compelling. I'm glad I had 2 issues to go. Plus, they also toss in some bonus stuff. And I'm not talking like, okay, here's 20 pages in the next issue instead of giving you, 20 extra pages. But they give you some prose stories amongst the ads to the other books and stuff. And I haven't even read those. I just was reading the comics so I could have something to review for you here, folks. Again, I recommend this as a buy. And like I said, should be on the newsstand with more happy comics. So be happy, people. Otherwise, this may be the America we grow up with tomorrow.
And you buy, borrow, or ignore?
I already bought it.
Are you recommending other people buy it?
I do, either as a graphic novel when it comes out in a couple of months, or it's not too late. You can probably get the first couple issues on the newsstands right now. Or I should say comic stands, because obviously there are no comics in newsstands anymore.
Well, I do see the Archie Digests.
I actually saw some the other day. That was kind of cool.
My next comic is the Autumnal, which is from Vault's Nightfall line. It's their horror line, which is weird because when you think Vault, you probably think horror anyway. But it is, let's see, Welcome to Comfort Notch. Following the death of her estranged mother, Kat Somerville and her daughter Sybil flee a difficult life in Chicago for the quaint and possibly deadly town of Comfort Notch, New Hampshire. It's written by Daniel Kraus, who is a best-selling author. He wrote The Shape of Water, Troll Hunters, and The Living Dead. Shape of Water and Troll Hunters have been made into movies. And Chris Sheehan as the artist. And just as it said, it starts off with the lead character picking up her daughter at school because her daughter has gotten into a fight. And we get some background on their life and what's going on there, but there's stuff that is left unsaid that will be told to us in later issues. They then move to this town because her mother has died and left her the house. And it's an odd little town. It says that it's the most beautiful autumn town in the world. However, odd things are happening in that when a leaf falls from the sky, a leaf falls from one of the trees, one of the people in town gets very upset that this has happened. And then when she goes to her mother's funeral, no one is there, but they've insisted on a closed casket. When she opens the casket, she's horrified by what she sees. And this issue is all set up. There's a lot that is given to us, even though there's very little dialogue. It's told through art and character interaction. The coloring is beautiful. The coloring is almost kind of a watercolor on top of the art. The art is good, not great. The characters are all different. The story is told well, but the coloring is really what makes this art shine. It's just beautifully done. The contrast between their life in Chicago and their life in the other town, the way the color palette is used, a very cold color palette is used in the opening sequence, an almost oversaturated color palette is used for the flashbacks, and then once you get to the town in New Hampshire, it's all very rich, reds and yellows and golds, and the color helps tell the story in a way that I haven't seen in other comics. A lot of mystery is dropped in this. However, Like most first issues of indie books that are telling a longer story, you're paying $4 for about 5 to 7 minutes worth of reading. And it really feels like you're just getting the first chapter of a novel. So this one, it's very clear to me, it's written by a novelist. Novelists have a lot of trouble with making each part of a serialized story stand on its own. And while this has a nice cliffhanger, it really feels like when you go to a restaurant and you take one bite of your food, and you can tell whether you like it or not by that first bite, but if the first bite is all you're going to get, you're probably not going to be happy with your meal. That's kind of how I felt with this. This was just a first bite of the story, and because it goes so fast and it's told so visually, I would much rather read it in a collected version rather than, okay, here's the first issue, now I have to wait a month or maybe 2 for the second part, and then another month and maybe 2 for the third part. In that, a lot of the story is told via detail, and in a month or 2, that detail is going to fade if you read other things or anything like that. So as a regular comic, I'm going to give it a borrow, and I will revisit it when it's collected to see if it's worth a buy. But as a regular comic, I say this a lot, but it's a good start, but I don't know where it's going to go, and I don't know if $4.99 for this little of the story is worth it. So I'm going to put it as a borrow. I did enjoy it, and I am looking forward to the collected edition. Joe?
Cory, you like a good crossover?
Yeah.
Well, why don't you just head on over to Image and pick up crossover number 1?
I have that one on my list as well.
Oh, fun. This will be interesting to see what we think of each other, because I've read this one, and usually what I do is I'm going to wait for the first storyline to go, but I just thought I'd give it a try. Essentially, the story is of a crossover, but not what you're thinking. Oh, we're not talking DC Marvel. We're not talking Deathmate. I'm sorry, I can do it. We're not talking Deathmate. Okay, you know what I'm talking about.
He's gonna puke. He's gonna puke.
The heroes of a fictional superhero universe on January 11th, 2017, crossover into Denver, Colorado, and almost, if not, well, pretty much destroy it. There's people dead. There's a lot of damage. It's like a virus. They're spreading. The government's reaction is to basically put a force field around it and forget about it. Well, we're not inside the crossover, is what they had. We're on the outside, where we discover that the big thing that's happened is comics and comic books are kind of the how would you say it? They're kind of the devil. People are protesting against it. They take dim view of cosplay. They take dim view of people reading comics. You got the religious types outside the comic stores, pray the capes away and things like that. So as we're going through this, we discover what's been going on. This is just basically one girl's, I'm trying to find her name, but you don't have to worry about confusing characters, because like one of my favorite things is the art is very clean. You'll be able to tell who's who as you're being introduced to people. These people basically, you're either with comic books or you're against it. I can see this almost like back in Fred Wortham's days, where people, we're going to burn comics because they're the devil at rampant. Well, that's kind of the attitude. So as we're following along, eventually the plot device comes where they discover there's a young girl here who seems to have escaped from the crossover bubble. And again, this is just the first part. This is an ongoing series, I believe, from Image. And I really, really enjoyed it. I mean, it was one of those things where, you just start reading and, they're talking Marvel, they're talking DC. We don't see any, of course, because, copyright laws, but for those of us who are comic readers, it's probably real familiar. And there's one thing on a page where they have this big website that says God Hates Mask, and there's an actual website there. I am going to type it in and see what we get. While I'm doing that, Cory, what's your opinion on this particular one?
I thought the setup was very well done. Then the sequence where they're at the comic shop and people are protesting outside, it went on a little long. And I wanted them to kind of pull the camera back more so that we could see what was going on outside the area around this comic shop. But it's pretty clear that the characters in the comic shop are going to be our lead characters. So I think they're going to use them to kind of guide us through what else is going on in this world. And the whole thing about the little girl who's escaped from the lockdown is interesting enough that I'm going to be picking it up. As a first issue's job is to introduce the world, introduce the characters, and give us a hook. And in that way, it did all three. It gave us this world where a superhero crossover has kind of jumped into, quote, real world, unquote. And this is how the real world is reacting to it. I really want to know how the government was able to contain it within the force field, how the girl escaped, and on like that. So it's a really good hook. And for a first issue, you got to have a good hook to get people to get the next issue. I am looking forward to the next issue. When it comes to it being an ongoing, I'm hoping that it's what Image does a lot, where it's not really an ongoing, but it's a long, limited series. Just like how Chew wasn't an ongoing, it was a 70-issue book. Or
so eventually they have a resolution coming.
Yeah, that they have a resolution coming, because there's a big difference in the type of story you can tell where you have an endpoint or you're just going to keep going. And this is a story that very much seems like it's going to need an endpoint. So, and also it's Donny Cates, who's really good at making things seem big. One of the things I like about his Marvel work is everything he does seems big. It seems important. It seems, it seems cosmic. And for him to do that and then focus it way down on something small shows a lot of shows that he's got different muscles he can flex. So this is one where I picked up the first issue to see if I'd like it. This is another one where I'm going to be picking it up as trades, but the first issue did hook me.
And I'll be picking it up as I know they're trying to get the term floppy out there for month-to-month issues. Cory, we're going to take a thumbs up or down. Are we going to call them floppies, yay or nay?
Doesn't matter to me. I call them monthlies.
Yeah, I'm going to say nay on that. But yeah, when you get to that sign, God Hates Mask, go check out the website on it. I'm not going to spoil it for you. But it's clever. I thought it was a clever thing to do. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. But we killed two with one stone. Should I go on to the next one?
Sure.
All right. A girl walks home alone at night. This is from Behemoth. I'm not sure if it's a 1 or 2 issue series. They didn't really say. I know I've ordered issue 2. I believe this is based on a movie. And if it is a movie, it's a very I'm trying to find anything. I recall recommending this when we did previews. And Cory, you mentioned something about how'd you say it? Like a 2-minute read?
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is a 2-minute read. It's in black and white, which I suppose works for the mood they're trying to establish. I think they could have done, for all the gorgeousness they put into the covers, they could have maybe put a little bit more on the inside. But it's compelling. That it basically deals with the girl who obviously walks home at night. And for what I read, I mean, it was done in a couple minutes. I don't feel like I was gypped out of it, but I also feel like, you know, it's one of those things. I like to support independent comics, but I also need to get something out of it. And with this one, I just kind of like, I don't feel like I really got a lot out of it. And it's kind of disappointing because what little I did get, I did enjoy. I did like the way the art was set up. It fit the mood, obviously, because, you know, when you look at the cover and you hear, you know, you see her in a hood and the girl walks home alone at night. I mean, that's pretty much just yells horror to you, doesn't it? So I know there's a second issue. I don't recall ordering a third. If this is an adaptation of the movie, I guess so be it. I mean, I bought a lot of those in the 70s and 80s when Marvel was doing this, but as a standalone, I would maybe borrow, if not ignore. If they ever do it as a collected edition, it might be a little bit more bang for your buck. So, but like I said, I bought it, and it's hard to do that for a book that I actually enjoyed reading. I just wish it was more of it. And I've had this phenomena before. It happened with Cerebus. It happened with Bone. It's like you wait a whole month, you read it, and boom. I just spent a minute and a half reading something I waited an entire month for. But when you sit down, you read it in the graphic novel form, it gives you a little bit more meat to it. So if you see this on the newsstand, take a quick peek, see what you think. Otherwise, I would say wait and hope that they sell enough that they can come out with a collected, because I think you might get more out of that. What you got up next, Mr. Strode?
The next book I have is a new Marvel book called The Union. The Union is written by Paul Grist, who's known for doing stuff over at Image, and it's drawn by Andrea DeVito with Paul Grist as the pencilers. Paul Grist also inked some of the pages. It is a tie-in to King in Black, but here's the thing. This was announced as a tie-in to Empire, and then because of COVID-19 shutting down the comic industry, it was delayed, and now it's a tie-in to King in Black, which furthers my whole hypothesis that an alien invasion is an alien invasion is an alien invasion.
Let's see, who's invading this week? Should be Skrulls or Kree? I don't recall.
No, it's symbiotes.
Oh, no, that was last month.
So the Union is a team of superheroes in England. It is created by a rich businessman, and they actually have their own TV show, Britain's Got New Heroes, Britannia, Snakes, The Choir, and Kelpie. And Union Jack is trying out for the team. And if this sounds really cliche, the idea of it is, but the execution is what makes it better. We then very quickly shift to the new Union Jack, why he wants to be in the team and what he's doing to go through it. It is a competition, and it's all from his point of view. But then, because of the tie-in, things go horribly, horribly wrong. But this is a great issue to set up the situation. This is a corporate-owned superhero team working in England. They are building up their ranks, and because it's the Marvel Universe and because it's a comic book story, things go sideways due to this crossover. The art is beautifully done. There are different art styles through the book. The opening page actually looks like an animated series, because it is. It's the it's the cartoon based on the characters. Then we get the superhero imagey stuff, but the stuff with Union Jack is drawn by Paul Grist, whose stuff is just, I absolutely love his art. He knows his anatomy, he knows storytelling, he knows page design, so he leads you through the page in a way that a lot of artists aren't able to do anymore. This sounds a little weird, but it's an effortless read because his art guide you to where the pages go next. And the only example I have of, Joe, do you remember in 70s comics where every so often they would have an arrow to show you what panel to read next?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's somebody who's not doing good storytelling. This is the opposite of that, where you don't even need to think about it, because the art does such a good job of saying, okay, here's what's next. There's a lot of information that's dumped in this issue about the background of the characters, about the media world that they're in, and in a lot of ways, this doesn't need to be a tie-in other than the big twist at the end. And it's really clear that when you read through it, you'll go, oh yeah, they just redrew that. They just redrew that character. They just redrew that page. That's how they were able to change it up. But a very well done book. You don't need to read King in Black to know what's going on. And one of the things about Marvel that I like is there is this feeling that there are superhero teams all over the world. We're just not hearing about them. The British superhero scene seems to be one that they keep trying to ignite. They did it with Excalibur. They did it with Captain Britain. They've done it with some other things. They even did it with Marvel UK. This was a very successful first issue. I'm really looking forward to it. As a buy, borrow, ignore, this one I am loading as a buy. Joe?
Oh, I don't even know where to go next. Let's see. How about... Okay, I'll pick up this one. I just got a whole pile of these here. Wolverine Black, White, and Blood. I know we've talked about this in the past, but this is essentially a 4-issue series with a number of stories in it. Let's see, Greg Duggan and Andy Kubert do one. Declan Shelby does one. Matthew Rosenberg, Joshua Cassara does one. And, of course, probably a million different variant covers. I got one with Adam Kubert on it. But essentially, it's black and white, and then, of course, red is put in to accentuate either where you would expect. I mean, it's a Wolverine comic. Either where you expect the blood or just, for effect to figure out who's talking with who. I'm just going to page through it. The first story, it's kind of dealing with the Weapon X days, because you see the whole Weapon X gear that we know Logan was in. And then let's see, on to the second story. Looks more like, we've seen it before. Wolverine tied up in chains, being interrogated, and we'll see what happens. Nick Fury's in it. Looks like Hydra's in it. So we got a good storyline. That was actually a pretty good story with a twist. And then Cabin Fever, I think, was the most powerful of them, where Wolverine's just out kind of dorking around and runs across some innocents. This is a lot of fun. And I usually shouldn't use that, because in my old comic store days, whenever I said something was fun, people would put it back. But I should say better, I enjoyed the heck out of this. And it's just the first issue. They're short stories. They're not tied into anything. You can place them anywhere in the timeline you want. So those of you scared about continuity, don't worry about it. You can pick it up. They use the effect of the blood, aka red, quite well. It accentuates the stories. What's nice is you get to see some of the art that would otherwise be obscured by maybe coloring or word balloons. So the red doesn't really get in the way. There's only 3 stories in this first one, but like I said, there's 3 more issues coming of this. And see, what did they want for it? $4.99. It was a pretty good deal for $4.99, in my opinion. You know, I'm kind of a cheap bastard anyways. So this is another one of those where if you like some good Wolverine stories, you don't want to jump in on, Wolverine hanging out with the House of Hickman, whatever he's doing. This is probably for you. Either pick up the miniseries or just wait. This, I hope, comes out, and it would be a very nice hardcover book. And I'm not prone to hardcovers. So, but I mean, that's telling you just how excited I am about this. In fact, I'm willing to drop some bucks on it. And while I'm going the comic book route, I would definitely recommend you could pick up the hardcovers and get the same effect on it. So for this one, for me, I definitely put it as a buy, with the caveat, if you're prone to wait for graphic novels, do so, because you know it's going to be an awesome book on your shelf.
I read this one as well, and there are a few things. First, I love anthologies, and the thing about an anthology is you get almost kind of a smorgasbord. The first story is a Weapon X story. The second story is more of kind of your standard Wolverine in the superhero world story, and the last one is a very horror-based story. But the other thing is, I've never been a guy who thinks that Adam Kubert is the greatest artist ever. When he got into comics back in the 90s, his stuff really seemed very imagey in that, wow, this is really busy art. It's hard to follow. It's a lot of cross-hatching, a lot of extraneous lines. He was one of those artists who didn't realize, as editors have said for years, every line you put on a character's face ages them. This art, with all of it feels like when you strip away the color, his art works so much better. And his storytelling has improved like you can't believe. There's a 2-page splash made up of a whole bunch of tiny panels that works as you read it, panel to panel, but then when you pull back and look at it as a page, it's not a poster, but it gives a mood. You see two things going on at the same time, done in a way that really works. That in your brain, you actually start seeing the two things happening simultaneously. The last story is a great horror story, just a great horror story that I loved a lot. And I like these. I like the Batman Black and White that came out recently. Grendel Black, White, and Red was done years ago. I love that as well. If you go back and you read Ms. Tree back when it was with Renegade Press, it was the same sort of duotone, which is it's black and white art. They use only one color, and they use gradients of that color to kind of highlight things. It's a style that's used in a lot of European comics. Some American comics use it from time to time, but hopefully this sells well enough that they could do another run of these, because boy, it really highlights the art. And could not have loved this first issue more.
There, you got 2 thumbs up. What else do you need?
The next one that I have is another first issue, and that is, I know that I've talked about how we like to review smaller books. I haven't gotten a lot of smaller books lately, but I also think it's a good idea to review the great big things. And one of the great big things that came out is King in Black. King in Black #1 came out. And let me pull it up here so that I can get the artist's name, because I don't want to mess that up. There we go.
Yeah, that's
King
my
Black.
job.
Ryan Stegman did the art. Donny Cates did the story. Even though this is a story that has been brewing for years and years, this first issue sets everything up, lets us know the stakes, and then puts the pedal to the metal and goes right to, it basically doesn't waste any time. It's an oversized book. It's 40 pages of story. We get Eddie Brock as our lead character. He's our through character to let us know what's going on. But one of the problems I have with a lot of crossovers is that, a whole lot is going on. And it will give you, here's this page, and if you want more, read this crossover. Here's one page, and if you want more, read this crossover. This felt more like you could just read this story. The other crossovers will give you detail, but everything you need is here, because it starts with Eddie Brock, and then it gets to more heroes, and then it grows, and it grows, and it grows. And unlike Empire, this feels like, holy shit, we are in a lot of trouble in the Marvel Universe. It's a lot like when Jeff Johns was doing Justice Society, where he was able to do cliffhangers where you went, oh crap, I don't know how they're going to get out of this. And yet, when you would read the second issue or the third issue or the entire story, he had put all the clues you needed for how they would get out of it. I trust Donny Cates because of Silver Surfer Black and the other stuff he's done, where he's done very similar things. But man, you read this and it really feels like, oh, there's no way out of this, which is what you want a big crossover to feel like. If you're going to have all of these characters in it, it should feel big, it should feel dangerous. And he's really good at getting that sort of cosmic scale of danger across. Ryan Stegman's art is good for this style of storytelling, in that his panels can run the gamut from very big to show you a lot of stuff to very intimate, so that you get the differing scale of the big attacks are happening and it's affecting this one person. Another thing that seems to really be jumping out at me lately is the coloring in comics. I remember I'm going back and I'm reading the stuff from the 70s, and it's very basic. And the only time you notice coloring is when it's bad. Then when computer coloring started, it seemed like everybody wanted to use the Photoshop effects and make it as garish as possible. And now they're using the coloring to sort of accentuate the art. They can use the coloring to kind of accentuate how the art is showing light sources, or gradients of art where, okay, this light source is here, when it's hitting the person, it's very bright here, but it fades across as it goes into shadow. And the colorist in this does that very well, which works because this is a story about things going from light to shadow. The King in Black is bringing darkness to the Marvel Universe, and it accentuates the story in a way that it's really clear that they have spent a lot of time and a lot of thought on this. And maybe that 6-month delay for the COVID-19 helped them kind of refine this story. Empire was a story I could take or leave. This is a story where I'm not a big Venom fan, but I'm on the edge of my seat. When is the next issue? So this one is a definite buy. Like Donny Cates' other big crossovers, there's going to be a big omnibus that reprints the whole thing. But if you just want the King in Black issues, you can read those and not have to read the other stuff. So definitely.
Which is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm buying this, the main event. So far, like you said, I've enjoyed the first issue. I might buy the omnibus, depending on how big it is, because this is a pretty big event. How many more you want to do here, Cory?
One more.
One more. Okay, I'm going to go all the way to the bottom and pick up this big ass book called X-Men: The Art and Making of the Animated Series by Eric Lewald and Julia Lewald. And here I bought this because, first off, we have a personal connection, not only to the X-Men animated show, because as we've said before, one of the guys who, he didn't own, but he worked and he palled with the owner of Hot Comics, Dan Wiesemeyer. He was the storyboard artist for the X-Men series, and I believe some of his stuff is in here. I haven't totally searched it out. And he was the one, Dan, that got Hot Comics locked in to be the sole advertiser when the animated cartoon hit. And we were, it's hard to say, when you look back and you go, oh yeah, it was cool. But when it was coming out, people were dubious about it. We weren't. We saw Dan's storyboard. We were all over X-Men. We were just excited about it. This is a huge book. It's oversized. It's upwards of 300 pages, Beautiful art. A lot of what do you call concept drawings. There's some animated cells they do, and at the end you got an episode guide. They talk quite a bit about it. There's behind the scenes notes to it. If you're a fan of this show, if you are into behind the scenes stuff, which a lot of times Cory and I are, if you just like to see some decent artwork and how they do it and how they went from concept to the actual series, this is actually kind of a book for you. I mean, you just look at the first chapter, season 1 or just one season. Now, I'll also say as a bonus, and it's not really a bonus, but if you do buy this, you can go to and talk to Dan and make arrangements to ship the book to him, and he'll draw whatever you want in it. Sooner or later, I'm hoping Dan comes up for one of our shows, and I'll confront him with that as well. But Dan's art, as usual, is clean, it's crisp, it's as beautiful now as it was when I had him do some stuff. Dan, of course, was big doing the Lego art for numerous projects. Well, when you see some of the stuff he's done for the X-Men, you're just going to be amazed because, I mean, yeah, he can draw a Lego character to knock your socks off, but he just does beautiful artwork. I don't know if Dan's Facebook page, again, Dan Wiesenmeyer, don't know if his page is open to the public, so you can go look at some of his stuff. I think it is because it's kind of his fan page too. Don't quote me on that, but either way, if you send him a note, just say, hey, Crazy Joe said I could talk to you about maybe getting a sketch inside this book. It's been out for a while, and, you know, I'm not big on art books because I don't have a lot of money, but this one was just amazing, and I'm glad that I bought it. Again, it's X-Men, Art and Making of the Animated Series, and I believe Marvel with Abrams published it. So, again, I bought it. If you can get it from a library, definitely check it out. But I put mine down as this one. Definitely, if you can afford to buy it. If you can't, see if you can borrow it because it's worth the read. That's my final selection. How about you, Cory? What you got for us next?
The last one I have is a one-shot, Fantastic Four Road Trip, which is written by Christopher Cantwell and drawn by Felipe Andrade. And it is a one-shot that fits into continuity wherever you want it to. The Fantastic Four go on a road trip, and because it's the Fantastic Four, things go horribly, horribly wrong. This was one of those books, when I saw it solicited, I was like, why? Not that I dislike one-shots, but I'm wondering, you can't put a one-shot into a trade paperback. It's not tying into anything. It just seems like a random story out there, and the Fantastic Four isn't this huge seller that they're flooding the market with. And I picked it up because it's the Fantastic Four. The art by Felipe Andrade is not what you would expect. It's a different art style. It's in a way, it's very European. It seems almost like it's influenced by Milo Manara in how it's laid out. And it is, the Fantastic Four have all piled into for lack of a better term, a station wagon, and they're driving through the Southwest, and they come upon a scientific curiosity that Reed must investigate, and things devolve from there. It's one of those that I enjoyed it while I read it, but when I got done, it felt like a short horror story that was stretched out to 34 pages and could have been told in 12. If you like the art style, it's worth it. For me, the art style it's not the type of art that I really go for, so I didn't really jump all over it. When it gets to the horror elements, it is really creepy looking, and that part is well done. It does use Fantastic Four lore, and it is a nice way to kind of, it is a good one-shot in that as you read it, you get to know the Fantastic Four. One of the things that's odd about it, though, is it seems to be set before Empire, except it's also set after the Thing has gotten married to Alicia. So why they're putting it out now kind of feels odd, or they could have put something in there where the Thing didn't bring his kids along because blah, 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 and the Human Torch didn't bring his soulmate along because blah, 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 blah. But instead, it's just kind of there. Marvel is doing a lot of these one-shots that just feel like they're there to be on the shelf. And 2 months after I read this, if somebody reminds me of it, I'll go, oh, yeah, I read that. But it's not something I'll think about again. So if you are interested in this, it's going to be on Marvel Unlimited in 3 months. So,
or in a dollar bin at your next favorite neighborhood convention.
Yeah, it's one of those where if you're digging through a quarter bin or a 50-cent bin or a dollar bin, it's a good, solid 15, 20-minute read, but it's nothing I would go out of the way for. So I'm not going to say it's an ignore. It's a borrow. And by borrow, I mean read on Marvel Unlimited. But it's nothing you need to pick up, even if you're a big Fantastic Four fan like I am. Well, Joe, it's not Christmas yet.
Not for us.
No. So that means that we are still highlighting charities. So here's the charity that we are highlighting this year. During the holiday season, we here at Crazy Comics and Stories and the other podcasts in the Solitaire Rose Radio Network turn our ad space over to charities. And the first charity we're going to be highlighting is the Hero Initiative. It's at heroinitiative.org. It helps comic creators in need. The Hero Initiative creates a financial safety net for comic creators who may need emergency medical aid, financial support for the essentials of life, and an avenue back to paying work. Since its inception, the Hero Initiative has been fortunate enough to benefit creators with more than $1 million worth of much-needed aid, fueled by your contributions. It's a chance for all of us to give back something to people who've given us so much enjoyment. You can donate. You can go to Humble Bundle, and there's usually a bundle there that you can purchase and give part of those proceeds. There's an eBay site where you can purchase art and books that have been donated, and there are other initiatives that you can get out on heroinitiative.org. That's heroinitiative.org, one of the charities we will be highlighting this holiday season. 2 weeks ago, I had a new episode of Solitaire Rose Radio. And you never know when my other podcasts will pop up, depending on when I get time off and when I'm not called into the group home and things like that. So here are all the other podcasts that I do. The Solitaire Rose Radio Network is currently on a pause, basically because COVID-19 has made it so that I have to work a lot of extra hours at both jobs. But you can still go and listen to my other podcasts. Now, you're probably listening to Crazy Comics and Stories, which is the main podcast, but on this same feed, KRAYZCOMIX, is Solitaire Rose Radio, the solo radio podcast that I do. I've done interviews, I've done short stories, I've done all sorts of things, and you can get to it right here on this same feed. I also do a podcast called Novelcast, where I take the novels I've written and turn them into free audiobooks. That's over at novels.solitairerose.com. Dangerous Dan Moore and I, and of course Wolfie B. Bad, give you bad advice over at badadvice.solitairerose.com. You send in your questions, and we give you the aforementioned bad advice. And then myself and Adam Vermillion from For the Love of Comics do the Fantastic Forecast at fantasticforecast.solitairerose.com, where we go through the issues of the Fantastic Four, 4 issues at a time, to give the plot and commentary on each issue. That's not all. Yes, I'm crazy. I still, over at pwinsiderelite.com, every week on Wednesday, do a recap of the latest episode of AEW Dynamite. I write up what happened, and then myself and Anthony Pyrus we'll do an audio. Now, you can only listen to the audio, if you remember, at pwinsiderelite.com. And if you're a wrestling fan, you should be, where we then break down the episode, talk about what we liked, what we didn't like, give it a grade, and let you know if you should have watched that episode. Those are the other podcasts here at the Solitaire Rose Radio Network. Thanks. And now we get to Joe's favorite part of the show. No, not where he dips himself in a 55-gallon tub of
65.
lube. No, it's 55 on Amazon. A
that's
55-gallon tub of lube and slides down the stairs on his tummy.
Wee! Who needs slippery slopes?
No, it's Joe. What's going on the eBays?
Well, let's see. I'm going to divide this in three. First off, you know I buy on eBay, right?
Yes.
So the last couple of things I bought just because I was bored and I happen to have money, I bought a Danger Mouse Mark V Danger Car toy with pop-out wings and a little tiny Danger Mouse figure, just for the heck of it. I like Danger Mouse. The other thing I bought was a while back. There was an exclusive Marvel Conan the Barbarian #1 Arnold Schwarzenegger movie photo variant cover. And I found one cheap on the eBays, and since I didn't buy it direct, I was actually trying to save up to buy the actual autograph. But as you can imagine, his autograph was kind of pricey. It was in like the $400 range. And but I do like the cover. And who knows, maybe Arnold, if you're out there and you're bored, give us a call. We'd love to have you on our podcast. So I'm still buying stuff. As far as selling, let me pop up the old Kray 5000. And not a lot is sold since the last con. I lie. There's always something selling. Battlestar Galactica 1999 tour book. Back when Realm Press had the rights to Battlestar Galactica. And this was one of those Dynamic Forces ones, so it came sealed with a little sticker and all that, of course. One of the books I dug out of, I believe it was when we were at Nerding Out. It was 4-color number 847, Walt Disney's Peary, a true life adventure of a squirrel. 1957. I think it was based on probably one of the Wonderful World of Disney's they might have been running back then or whatever. It was only a very good copy, but you priced it accordingly, and it sold quite well. I don't think you or I bought this, Cory. Ami Comic Girls from DC.
I did not.
It's where they kind of I think anime-ish out the girls, the superhero women of the DC universe. And there was one cover number 4, that featured Power Girl in all her power goodness that apparently is a little bit pricier than some of the other ones, just because, Power Girl, big boobs, cleavage, you know the drill. And I found a copy and just sold it. I mean, this wasn't a series for me. Again, if you like your superheroes more animated, animated, I can't even say it right. Animated. I guess I did say it right. This would be one for you. It came out in 2013. I imagine there's a trade paperback of it somewhere. Cory, did you ever read Mason Akuku?
Yeah,
when it came out from Viz?
Yes.
Akuku. Yeah,
they are reprinting it now, by the way, and the first volume of the reprint has come out.
I picked it up in comic form.
So
for some reason, my run was not complete. And we're talking, this was Viz way back in 1993. So I basically bundled them all together and just let them sit, and eventually they did sell because I had parts 3 with 4 and 5 being complete. I believe that's what it said, but no, I'm sorry, part 3, 4, and 5 complete with parts 1, 2, and 6. And this is one of those things that drives me up the wall. I know I bought them all. I just don't know where they all went. So but because they're coming out in form, in a book form that I can read, I figured that I'll be picking those up. Another one that sold was a series from Avatar called Caliban. This was a Garth Ennis series. And I'm going to fire up Atomic Avenue and see if they have a write-up on it. Yeah, it's an epic of science fiction horror. The crew of the Caliban travels hyperspace on nothing more than a routine trip for the giant vessel. Just as human beings that have been inside too long, confident of no other life in the galaxy and all the vastness of space to remind them how far they are from home. An impossible accident suddenly causes the Caliban to slam into an abandoned alien ship. Now, Garth Ennis wrote this, so if that doesn't get you going, I suppose the artist Facundo Parcio won't make a difference. But this came out in 2014 from Avatar. We've been talking about Avatar. Well, we don't know what they're doing. I think they're just blowing out their inventory to get out of here. The one I saw was the Dark Matter red foil logo variant cover. And again, it's in book form. It's in comic book form. You can find it if you want. There was another one. I sold a series from Drawbridge called Avatar. And I believe this was based on the video game. And I had no... I don't know where it came from. I just bundled it as a miniseries and sold it. The other one I sold is it's called Doorman from Heavy Metal 2016. I don't recall reading this. I know I read it. I just don't recall reading it, which is never a good sign for me because that just means I'm going to get rid of it. But it was set up, futuristic doorman, guarding a door, whatever. Not terribly expensive. You should be able to go out and find it on the eBays. The last thing I sold is probably something, Cory, you heard of. Daredevil, the Man Without Fear.
Oh, yes, I've heard of that.
Yeah, Frank Miller, John Romita. Was it senior or junior? No, it had to have been junior.
Junior. It was junior. It was Miller's last run on Daredevil, where he kind of did a version of his origin, I believe.
Yeah, and this one was a Marvel mega hit collector pack. You know, we've been talking about how, well, definitely at Walmart, DC and Marvel have been packaging their comics. In the case of Marvel, they usually throw in a unique variant cover. Well, this was back in '94. They were doing the same things. They put these Marvel mega hit collector packs, throw them out in the stores, and they were all bundled together in its own pack with the comics inside it. And these were actually, they had the flashier cover, the whole miniseries did. So it was a good series. You could go pick it up, probably graphic novel form, or, you know, go out and, like I did, sell it on the eBays. I'm going to save the third thing for next week because we're doing a positive here. And after the Festivus, everybody's kind of pissed off everywhere. So if you're interested, I actually been putting stuff on the eBays. Today I got about a dozen things on. So I'm back in the saddle again after being knocked out by pneumonia. So if you're interested in what I've put on, or if you see something there that's been sitting around, send me a note. Tell me you're a listener of this here podcast. I'll make you an offer you can't refuse, or maybe toss in a bonus or two. Crazy, Krayz. Come get some. Oh, still don't have my bass voice back.
And now we get to my favorite part of the show. No, not where I get in the car and drive all around to look at Christmas lights. It's Freaking and Geeking. Joe, what are you freaking on?
Well, I got when this hits, I will have worked Christmas. I'm not happy about it because
Me too.
What they do is at work they put you. I tried for Christmas off and I couldn't get it, so they put you on a waiting list. And I'm like number 3. So you're talking about a group of 600. With already 30 people probably having Christmas off, the odds are pretty good I might get it off. But as it is now, it's Tuesday before Christmas, and the airlines are doing all sorts of special deals. So it's going to be real busy at the airport on Christmas. And although I've been needling my boss for the last month, you know, my wife would really like it if I got a Christmas off. I might even get a Christmas miracle. But it's not going to happen. Or if it does happen, I'll mention it next podcast. But so not happy about that. I really can't complain. I've had the last couple of years off. Plus, I got next year off the entire week. And then after that, if I keep the same days off, which I have for the last 8 years, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, I'll be off for the 2 Christmases after that. So 5 years to retirement. I got 3 Christmases off. And then, of course, with leap year, that'll push it forward into my RDO. So, yeah, really, not a lot to complain about. You know what I'm saying? Plus, well, this is more of a geeking, but this year they did declare New Year's Eve and Christmas. I get holiday pay for working those days. So the guys who don't work it get holiday pay anyways. And if I got it off, I would get day off in lieu of holiday, which means I don't burn my non-existent vacation time. Because remember, I have none since I decided to spend 2 weeks on my back with pneumonia. So that's kind of a downer. Another one has to do with I was playing an online game called Wild Frontier, and basically it's a war game. You build up a town, you gather resources, you join an alliance, you defend yourself if you fight people. But what's happened lately is there's a group that I call the uber powerful. So you're talking like, if you talk in terms of power level, where like I've been playing for a year, and I spend maybe $5 a week on the game. I'm not going crazy. I'm from the era where my weekend was going down to video arcades and tossing $20 in quarters in for an evening entertainment. So for me to drop $5 on a video game online, even if it's a freemium game, that means I enjoy it enough where I'm willing to pay the developers a little bit of change to show them how much I like it. And it keeps me going in the game. But what happened is there was a glitch in the game. So my shield, which protects me when I'm offline, didn't go up. I come back, I find out one of these uber powerful guys. Now remember, I said my power was like 50 million. These guys are like 200 million, 300 million. They're uber powerful. They've either been playing the game from the beginning, or they just spend oodles of money, and they're so powerful. The only thing that makes the game fun for them is to destroy other players. So I got basically wiped out. I've been wiped out before. In the beginning of the game, I got wiped out. And then I realized, oh, okay, I guess I'm just going to have to remember to protect myself when I'm offline. Normally I'd be like, oh, it's stupid me, I forgot to protect myself. But I play 3 different characters / towns in this game. 2 of them shielded okay, and then the big one did not. And online, there's other people complaining, hey, I just got wiped out by these guys. And the developers won't do anything for it. And I know they knew something was wrong, because I got this email in the game saying, well, sorry you got wiped out. Here's some stuff to get you regrowing. So you're basically, I lost 50 million. They basically gave me 1,000 in resources. That's piddlance. That's nothing. So now, and basically I'm just kind of, I'm going to stop playing the game. I'm definitely not giving them any more money. But there are certain sub games I like playing, and I know eventually I'll get bored with them. One of them's a blackjack game that I like, and I know I can go get a realistic blackjack game somewhere else. But what's funny is, in the game, you're cordoned off by states. Okay, so follow along. Your towns, you join alliances, and you're in a state. So every so often they have a state-to-state conflict. Well, what happened is these uber powerful guys in my state are now pissing and moaning because there was nobody around to help them when the powerful ones from another state came and kicked their living ass. And everybody's telling them, well, you guys spent the better part of a year destroying everybody who played the game. I know of, 2-3 people that I palled around with online that quit the game because they got destroyed, and they said, I'm not going to play this game anymore. And I found it ironic that, now they're like, well, we need to have peace and let everybody get strong. It's like, you jackasses, you were being warned about it for years, or at least the months I played, that, when we do this state to state, you're going to get your ass kicked because you're destroying everybody. And they're like, ha, 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 no, I can destroy you. Whatever. Not enough to get me to play, but at least I stuck around long enough to, see their ass get rubbed in it. And then you see some of the uber powerful who got their asses kicked from their 200 million to 0. Oh, it's been a fun game. I'm not playing it anymore. Pussies. Ugh. So just a little, and I guess the moral of the story is that anytime you get into this war game, whether it's a Western or World War II or space, it's always going to be that way. So I guess I'm just going to stay away from those games. What I will be playing, we'll get into freaking in a minute, or geeking in a minute. That's pretty much all I'm freaking on. What you freaking on, Mr. Strode?
I work on Christmas as well.
I know, that's not the day job. Would that be the overnight, or are you picking up extra shift?
That's the group home. It looks like one of our overnight staff is not coming back from the COVID-19 because every week they are having me. They're saying, "Can you do these overnights 2 and 3 weeks out?" I don't mind overnight shifts. I don't sleep real well on them. But it does mean that on my days off, I do tend to take a 2 to 3 hour nap, which it lets me get caught up. But the group home has been on what they call level 4 for the last month because 3 staff had COVID-19. Clients were all in their room. We had to wear full PPE the whole time we were there. And yes, we did get hero pay, but still, sleeping in one of those cloth gowns with the face mask on, you don't sleep well at all, which is why I took 4 days off. I took Thursday and Friday of last week and Monday and Tuesday of this week off from the full-time job. And a lot of it was just spent either, I'd work in the group home in the evening and do an overnight shift, or like today where I am so tired, I'm just not going to be able to do anything. So really for this vacation, I've just kind of been a bum. Minnesota is still locked down. Restaurants and everything, they did reopen gyms, but the movie theaters are still closed. All theaters are closed, museums, restaurants. Some restaurants are actually putting together things so that people can eat outside, those big outdoor heaters. And one restaurant in Chanhassen put in a large outdoor fireplace with blowers to kind of keep it warm. So those are good things. But every so often there's just somebody who goes, "This governor shutting down the state, he is terrible. We need to blah, 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 blah." And then you look and it's like, oh, okay. You're one of those people. You won't wear a mask. You don't understand that the ICUs in Minnesota are full. I think there was a point last week where if you needed to go to the ICU, that you would have to go to Milwaukee was the closest one. And I don't get why people just don't understand. The reason we do these is so that things won't spread because people aren't doing the minimum. They're not doing social distancing. They're not wearing masks. The hospitals are full. If you were to get COVID-19 and have trouble breathing, you would not be able to get a bed. Also, was 5 years ago that I had my gallbladder issue. If I would have had that today, I would go to the urgent care and they would go, "Yeah, you've got gallstones and we need to take your gallbladder out, but there are no beds." Sorry, nothing we could do. Sorry. That's why we have these lockdowns. And I just don't understand what it is that doesn't penetrate some people's thick skulls. Like Tom Waits said, we're monkeys with money and guns. Comic-wise, Marvel still hasn't released their stuff for March. Normally they release that around the 15th. It's like almost a week and a half late. Previews is probably already printed because over the Christmas holiday, remember that the printer is shut down. So they print all the stuff for the last 2 weeks of the year during 1 week. So sometimes your comic shop will actually get 2 weeks worth of comics, but they're told, "Oh, these you can't sell till next week." And most comic shops go, "No, we're selling them now." So there's that. The online places are just buried in orders. I finally got a note from cheapgraphicnovels.com. I ordered stuff the day after Black Friday because that's when they opened up their sale. I ordered stuff that day. I got an email last week. Yep, it'll be coming to you the week after Christmas. So if you ordered something for Christmas presents, you're out of luck. But then you're hearing from these people working at the post office that they have mountains of mail they are still sorting through, because the current Postmaster General took out a lot of the sorting information and got rid of overtime, and has not been replacing people who retire in order to, quote, save costs, unquote. So I don't like when the podcast gets political, but this is a very clear case. The president said it himself. He did this because he's mad at Amazon. And he is trying to slow down Amazon to hurt their business. And Amazon's fine. It's hurting all of us. It's hurting us getting our packages. It's hurting us getting our Christmas presents to people. It's hurting us getting our regular mail. I ordered a book through eBay about a month ago. It arrived in the Chanhassen Sorting Center. I live in Chaska. Chanhassen is like 7 miles away. It arrived in the Chanhassen Sorting Center and was there for 10 days before it was brought here. Why? Because they're that backed up, and it was media mail, and media mail is the lowest priority. That's why you don't pay much for it. It was the lowest priority. Normally, media mail gets to you in about 2 weeks. It took 5. So really torqued off about that, and I'm glad that I used the Amazon Prime for the Christmas presents that I ordered last week, because even though it's supposed to be 2-day, it ended up being 5 and 7 days. So people are getting them today and tomorrow, and today's the 22nd, tomorrow's the 23rd, so at least people are getting their presents before Christmas. Another thing I am freaking on, one of our own has left us, Joe.
Yes.
David Mers, who was one of the founders of the Minnesota comic book scene, has passed away. He and Joel Thingvall put together the first conventions back in the 70s that ran into the 80s, that are the ones that Joe went to. And then they faded out. And then the Minnesota Comic Book Association, which I was a part of, are the ones who brought conventions back. But David was a tireless booster of comics. He never cared about what they were worth. He cared about the stories and the people who made them. He also created the Minnesota Cartoonist Society, which was a group of local cartoonists that would get together once a month. Used to be at O'Gara's. I don't know where they meet now, if they still do. But I went for a year or so, and it's basically cartoonists and comic creators and people who work in the comic retail getting together. Usually it was, we'd all get dinner together and chat about the business and chat about other things. But every so often, David would bring something to the group. He would have some information. He would have some history. He would have something that we could do as a group to help other comic book people in the area. He passed away over the weekend. What it was, he had a blood clot in his lung, and it eventually went to his brain. And Joel Thingvall has a wonderful tribute to him that I shared on my page. I got to know him at these events, and he was always, if you asked him about comics, he could happily go on for hours. I remember one time at one of the conventions at the Thunderbird, he and I sat down, and anytime you get me talking about Kirby, I'm off to the races. He and I sat and we talked about Jack Kirby for at least an hour and a half. Stories that he had that I hadn't heard, stories that I had that he hadn't heard. He was at all the conventions, always a happy presence. He was always happy to see you. He was very outgoing, very gregarious. Reading about Joel, he was always giving to comics. He wasn't somebody who was there to make a dollar off it. He was always there to share comics, share ideas about comics, and share his love of comics. He had a slideshow that he took to local schools and libraries and other groups to kind of give not just the history of comic books, but the history of comic books in Minnesota. And the one time I really got to know him was when we brought Curt Swan in. I think that was, 94 when we brought in Curt Swan, Joe?
I believe so, yeah.
And he worked with me and Curt Swan's art agent, Spencer Beck, to get him here, but also to have the mayor of Minneapolis declare the first day of the convention Curt Swan Day. And he knew everything about Curt Swan, who lived in Minnesota before he got into the comic business, and just tons of history, gave a wonderful speech at the after party about Curt Swan's place in Minnesota and in comics history. He was also a huge booster of Charles Schulz. Charles Schulz, who was here. And the reason the Cartoonist League met at O'Gara's, Joe, was because...
It's where Charles Schulz grew up. Actually drew on the wall.
Yep, and it was where his father's barbershop was. They built O'Gara's where Charles Schulz's barbershop was. So it's a great loss. And I've retired from conventions, but one of the things that I miss was running into him 2 or 3 times over that weekend and us just chatting about what's going on in the world of comics, what we've discovered recently that we like. And again, he was a guy, he reminds me of that line by, I never met a man I didn't like. I don't think Dave ever met a person he wasn't happy to meet. So he will be missed, and another loss for the comics community here in the Twin Cities. And that's really what I'm freaking about. Joe, what are you geeking on?
Well, I am working Christmas, but we are going to have our Christmas family celebration on the following Sunday. And it looks like the weather allegedly is supposed to be good. So
allegedly.
Yeah. So, so they said in the 30s, so we'll do the same thing. We'll have like a fire and maybe meet outside. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Either way, I'm off, so that'll be kind of fun. I did get to do some Christmas shopping on my own. And I want to mention a couple places because they're probably still open, even though you're going to listen to this after Christmas. But in Rosedale Mall, there's a place called 6 for Good. It's 6 women, 6 brands, and they're doing good. It's basically they each have a different area, and they kind of boutique the store, and they're selling stuff. And I just went there and basically picked up stuff for Dana, Holly, and my wife, Chris. Check it out if you've got a woman in your life, or if you like cookies. One of them's got these thumb cookies. Oh my Lord, they're delicious. But I just kind of liked it because it was a local business, and I was trying as much as I can this year to just keep shopping locally. I did hit the source and again, it's after Christmas, so nobody has to worry about it. But for my oldest daughter's boyfriend, he's been reading the current Green Lantern. And I thought, well, I'm not giving him my Jeff Johns books because they're continued, but I did find a copy at the source, Greatest Green Lantern Stories Ever Told. So I'm going to give him that for Christmas. For my youngest daughter, he's a little tougher. I know he likes Witcher, but unfortunately the Witcher graphic novel isn't out yet. And while he likes video games, I'm not big on video games, so I couldn't even tell you if a comic book other than Injustice was based on a video game or not, unless I read it in like previews or something. He is a Star Wars fan. What I really wanted to get him was either Tag and Blink in the Star Wars universe, but it's Dark Horse out of print, or Dark Empire.
Marvel did a reprint of that you might be able to find.
I didn't find it.
Oh, okay.
So again, we'll put that on the comic shops for not keeping their stock straight. I couldn't find Dark Empire, which I thought he would enjoy, because when we had sat and watched Mandalorian, and we were really hyped on that. And I was explaining to him the whole Dark Empire, and how Star Wars was kind of a vacant property until Dark Horse got a hold of it, and kind of Dark Empire really is what kind of started the spark to more Star Wars. And here we are now. It's Disney Plus with all sorts of things. Mandalorian, a couple of surprise shows coming. The one with Obi-Wan with Ian McGregor. So I couldn't find that. They did have all the Marvel ones in stock, though. And again, I don't know if Dark Empire is through Marvel, but I just picked up the first graphic novel of the first beginning of Marvel's run. I really was hoping to find Vader Down, because we were talking about how badass Vader is. And I said, yeah, you got to read Vader Down, which crossed over. It was its own bookend, I think, or at least first issue, and then it went between Star Wars and Star Wars Darth Vader. But they didn't have that either at the stores I visited. So guys, really keep your Star Wars stuff in stock. I mean, it's going hot now. And if you're out of a major book like that, shame on you. Again, this was done the Monday before Christmas. So if it wasn't in the store, I didn't have time really to order it. Speaking of games I'm enjoying, I don't know, Cory, if you're still playing Simpsons Tapped Out.
Yes, I am.
Oh, what they did this time around is when you do the tasks for doing different events, you usually you like win donuts or prizes or whatever. This time you're winning tickets that allow you to win one of the premium things they've given away over the past couple of years. And so while I'm playing these, all of a sudden I'm finding oodles and oodles of premium things that I got. And so it's kind of fun. It's got a storyline going. You can follow along. And then, of course, being that I do like the Simpsons game, I actually went and dropped a 20-pack of donuts because they're giving you an extra like 25% or something. So I've been really enjoying the Simpsons game. I got to make sure to jump on every 4 hours or so just to keep advancing the plot. And I'm getting to the point where the town is just so huge, and I've got like over 250 characters. I used to just delight when I had time sit and give everybody individual tasks. Now it's like, hit the task manager. Everybody do a 4-hour thing, except you do 8. But I'm enjoying the game. They got a good Christmas theme going, so that's kind of fun. Other than that, I want to give my yearly thanks to my heterosexual life mate, Cory, for not only continuing this crazy podcast over 10 years, and God knows how many episodes. I stopped counting after 300.
This is episode 492.
Oh, my God.
We are 8 away from 500.
Oh, this is
figure out
insane.
what to do for 500.
And what's really amazing is the fact that I come on, I get to be Jerry Lawler and be the smart ass and talk for 2 hours and go away. But what you don't realize behind the scene, Cory's the one that whips this sumbitch into shape for an actual listenable podcast. And sometimes he does it like we record on a Sunday and he's got it up Sunday night. So kudos to you. Thank you for doing that, Cory. I don't know how you have time to do anything else. I suspect he has one of those little time manipulators somehow. It could be like from Harry Potter, or maybe one of those time things that like Captain Jack had. We'll never know, because he changed the locks on the Solitaire Rose compound. All those keys I've given away are useless.
Thank God.
In a couple months, I'll have you send me back your old ones. I'll get you some new ones. Don't worry about it. That's what I'm geeking on. Cory, what you geeking on?
Geeking. Joe, I am geeking on the fact that cheap graphic novels, they cut short their Black Friday sale because they had too many orders. Ask me, Cory, why are you geeking about that?
Cory, why are you geeking about that?
Because they said that they are going to delay their sale on Masterworks, omnibuses, and other big books, and DC until after the first of the year so that they can get caught up. So there's more ultra cheap stuff coming from cheapgraphicnovels.com. I am still reading the Johnny Dynamite book that I picked up from Yo Books.
Yo.
Man, this is good stuff. It's detective stories from pre-code, and it kind of is weird in that I would have thought there would have been more detective comics, but there really never were. This is one of the few hard-boiled detective stories that was done in comics. I can see why Max Collins and Terry Beatty like it so much, because it's, when you read it, it's very clear that it's a 50s comics version of the type of story they did for Ms. Tree. I'm also reading another old book called Weird Tales from the Future, and the reason for that is it's got a ton of stories by Basil Wolverton. Basil Wolverton did very strange art. He worked at Timely doing some stuff, and then in the 50s he sort of branched out and did art elsewhere, but his place in comic history was actually cemented by Al Cap, because Al Cap had a character called Lena the Hyena, who was the ugliest woman in the world, and he did a contest for someone to draw them. And Basil Wolverton, who was already a professional cartoonist, sent in his version, and it won. And Al Cap said it wasn't really a competition once he got it. Wolverton also did covers for Plop in the 70s, has done a lot of stuff. But Weird Tales of the Future has his most famous stories, like the Brain Bats from Venus. And recently it was reprinted in one of those PS Art books. And I was in the mood for some Basil Wolverton, because every so often it's like, I want to read these stories. They have been reprinted repeatedly, including in the 80s. Michael T. Gilbert reprinted them in Mr. Monster's Weird Tales. So I thought, I'll go pick up that PS Art book. Most of the PS Art books are being sold as discount. However, Weird Tales of the Future, not a discounted book. The paperbacks are selling for $30 each, but the hardcover, which is out of print, which reprints all the stories, is going upwards of $300 and $400.
Sheesh.
But here's why I'm geeking. You can head on over to digitalcomicmuseum.com or comicbookplus.com. These are websites that have public domain comics that you can download for free. They're books that people have scanned and uploaded. They have tons and tons and tons of public domain comics, including all of the original Captain Marvel, all of the stuff from Carlton, all of the stuff from Star Publications, Story Comics, Superior Publishing Limited, which had a bunch of crime books. American Comics Group, which was a company that started in the 40s and really sort of hung on until the late 60s without doing any superhero stuff. But man, you go to Carlton and it's like, good Lord, look at all these books from Carlton that are available. Because when they go out of business, the copyright is abandoned after a certain amount of time. And here's the thing. The reason they're able to reprint all of the Captain Marvel stuff, the character is still trademarked. But the comics fell out of copyright after Fawcett quit publishing comic books. So all of their stuff is there. WoW Comics, Captain Marvel Adventures, Captain Marvel Jr., Captain Midnight, Fawcett Movie Comics, Gene Autry, Lash LaRue, the Marvel Family. If you're looking for stuff to read, you can get it from those two, including the Plastic Man stuff, which has gone into public domain. That was from Quality Publications. I think, I'm going to scroll down here, but I think all of Quality has gone into public domain. Yep, all of Quality has gone into public domain, including The Spirit. Let's see. Police Comics is where the Plastic Man stories were. Uncle Sam Quarterly, Blackhawk, all 110 issues of Blackhawk are available. Kid Eternity. All of these comics are public domain. You don't have to pay big money for the reprints. You could just download them off the website for free. The other thing about Comic Book Plus, they have a bunch of pulp magazines that have gone public domain as well. If you go to, let's see here, I'll go to their main page here so I could talk a little about them. Let's see. They have public domain comic books, public domain comic strips, pulp fiction, newspapers and magazines, pamphlets and brochures, British comics. You can search by publisher. You can also search by date. So if you want, you can say, oh, what comics were on the stands in July of 1944, and it'll show you all the public domain stuff they have from that month. Just a wonderful service, free of charge.
Free.
They do ask you to log in, and they will ask for donations, so that's okay too. You can donate if you want. It helps pay. It helps pay for the cost of their bandwidth. But if I didn't have enough to read, I was able to download all the issues of Weird Tales of the Future and get me some Basil Wolverton. Believe it or not, kids, you've listened to us blather on about funny books for an hour and a half.
Don't think we don't appreciate it.
And as we say every week, the comic we like the least, we still like better than the comic that you like the most. Joe?
And as I do most every week, I feel like dancing. Cory, hit my music.